Wojak quit his job, and slept better than ever. The alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. sharp. I didn't move right away. Just laid there, eyes open, staring at the cracks in the ceiling I knew by heart. I'd been awake since 5 o'clock anyway. Couldn't sleep. Again. That's how most mornings started. Not with panic. Just numbness. I finally sat up, not because I felt ready, but because the clock told me I had no choice. My back ached from the warehouse shift the night before. My legs felt tight. My shoulders were still holding tension I couldn't stretch out, no matter how long I stood in the shower. I boiled water for coffee, even though I already knew it wouldn't help. Toasted a slice of bread. Let it go cold. Didn't have the energy to butter it. Just folded it in half and ate it like cardboard while I got dressed in a wrinkled button-down I didn't remember washing. By 7:15, I was out the door. The bus ride was slow, same faces, different weather. Everyone looked like me, quietly worn down, earbuds in, eyes low. I watched the same street corners go by in the same order, every single day. It felt like being trapped in a loop I couldn't exit. Familiar, predictable, exhausting. I got to the office just before 8 o'clock. Sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and stared at my inbox. 42 unread emails. I checked none of them. Instead, I just scrolled. Clicked between tabs. Typed meaningless words into spreadsheets. Smiled when my supervisor walked by, even though I felt like crying for no particular reason. I wasn't bad at my job. I just didn't care anymore. Not because it didn't matter, but because I didn't have anything left to give. My energy was already spoken for. By noon, I felt like I'd lived an entire day. I microwaved rice and vegetables in the break room, eating alone, like I always did. I didn't talk. I didn't scroll. I just stared at the little turning plate inside the microwave and thought about sleep. Not naps. Not tiredness. Sleep. Real, full, uninterrupted sleep. The kind that feels like disappearing. The kind I hadn't had in months. After lunch, more spreadsheets. More meaningless small talk with coworkers. Someone made a joke about how dead I looked. I forced a laugh. Told them I was burning the candle at both ends. They nodded like they understood. But they didn't. At 4:58 p.m., I shut my laptop and stood up. I was out the door by 5 o'clock on the dot. And then I had exactly 2 hours before the warehouse. I took the bus home, changed clothes, stood in the kitchen holding a fork but not sure what I was planning to eat. Ended up with instant noodles again. Burned my tongue because I didn't wait for them to cool. Didn't really taste them anyway. At 6:45, I left for job number 2. The warehouse was louder, colder, more real, somehow. The floors always smelled like diesel and cleaning solution. The lights buzzed slightly overhead. I clocked in, grabbed my gloves, and started lifting boxes that never seemed to stop arriving. Pallet after pallet. Scan, lift, stack. Repeat. The other guys were friendly enough. We shared looks that said this sucks, but nobody really talked. Nobody had the energy. By hour 3, my hands were sore. By hour 5, my brain had gone completely quiet. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't present. I was just functioning. When the shift ended at 12:30 a.m., I walked home slowly. The streets were mostly empty. My breath came out in faint clouds. A few cars passed. Their headlights washed over me and disappeared. It had been a 17-hour day. But the worst part? It was normal. I wasn't sprinting. I wasn't breaking down. I was just doing what I had to do. Again. I got home and collapsed into my desk chair. Opened my laptop just to stare at the home screen. I knew I should have gone to bed. But sleep had stopped feeling restful. It felt like a pause between obligations. A checkpoint, not a reward. I sat there in silence. And that's when it hit me, not all at once, but quietly. I can't do this forever. I whispered it out loud, even though no one was there to hear it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a cry for help. It was just the truth. I was running out of time, out of energy, out of parts of myself. If I didn't change something, I wasn't going to break, I was just going to vanish. And so I sat there, at 1 a.m., exhausted, motionless, staring at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. And for the first time in months, I asked myself, not what do I have to do tomorrow? But why? It started with a question I couldn't ignore anymore. What would happen if I didn't change anything? I asked myself that one night while lying on my back, too tired to sleep. My arms were sore from stacking boxes. My brain was fried from spreadsheet formulas I barely understood. I had that familiar ringing in my ears again, not from volume, but from fatigue. What if this is just life now? The question scared me. So the next day, in the small sliver of time I had between my office job and the warehouse shift, I sat on my couch, half asleep, half hungry, and I googled jobs that don't destroy your body. Then, best online jobs with no degree. Then, how to get out of the warehouse without going broke. That's how I found the course. IT support, a beginner level certification. They said people finished it in a month or two. Remote work was possible, decent pay, and most importantly, no forklifts, no back pain, no steel toe boots. I didn't feel inspired. I didn't even feel hopeful. I just felt desperate enough to try. So I enrolled. The first night, I opened the course after my warehouse shift. It was 1 a.m. I could barely keep my eyes open, but I watched the first lesson, What is a Network? The guy on screen sounded calm, confident, like he actually liked what he did. I didn't understand half of what he said, but something about the structure, the sense of forward motion, made me feel like maybe I had found a thread. A small one, but real. I kept going, watched another video, took a quiz, failed it, took it again, passed. By the time I closed the laptop, it was 3 a.m. My alarm was set for 6:30. The next day at the office, everything felt heavier. My eyelids buzzed. My head throbbed in the background. I forgot my boss's name mid-sentence. At lunch, I tried to review study flashcards but kept reading the same one over and over again without absorbing anything. That night, I worked the warehouse shift, then came home, opened the course again, and stared at the screen without pressing play. I just sat there, mouse in hand, frozen. Then I shut the laptop and went to bed without brushing my teeth. I told myself I'd catch up tomorrow. The tomorrow cycle became its own pattern. Try to study, fail to focus, feel guilty, repeat. Sometimes I'd make progress, a full lesson, a quiz passed on the first try, but other nights, I'd open the course and stare blankly while my body begged me to sleep. Worse than the tiredness was the doubt. You really think you're smart enough to do this? You think some random certificate's going to change your life? You're just wasting what little time you have left. The worst thoughts weren't cruel. They were quiet, reasonable, believable. That made them harder to ignore. About 2 weeks in, I broke down. Quietly. It was during my lunch break. I was sitting in a stairwell at work with my phone in my hand, trying to watch a lesson on network security. My headphones were in, but the words weren't sticking. I was too tired, too behind. So I paused the video, leaned my head back against the concrete wall, and let the silence settle. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let myself feel the weight of it all. The failure. The exhaustion. The creeping sense that maybe this was just who I was now, a guy with 2 jobs, no energy, and a handful of unfinished online courses to prove he once tried. I seriously thought about quitting. Not just the course. Everything. Dropping the whole act of trying. Of pretending I could change my life. Of pretending I was anything but stuck. But I didn't quit. Not because I was brave. Not because I was strong. But because I didn't want this version of my life to be the final one. I wasn't trying to chase a dream. I was trying to survive in a way that didn't kill me slowly. That night, I studied again. Not because I wanted to. But because I had to. Even if I crawled through every lesson. Even if I failed every quiz first and passed on the second try. Even if I didn't know if it would work. I finished the course on a Thursday night. I hit the final submit button at 2:12 a.m., alone in my apartment, wrapped in a hoodie that smelled like the warehouse. The screen flashed a green check mark, course complete. No fireworks. No dramatic music. Just a quiet, anticlimactic pause. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the tab and sat back in my chair. I was done. I didn't feel proud, exactly. I just felt still. The next day, I started applying to jobs. Part-time. Remote. Entry-level. I didn't expect anything. Not really. It felt like tossing paper airplanes into a storm. But I did it anyway. I applied in the morning before the office. On my lunch break. In the 15-minute window before I left for the warehouse. I didn't write any heartfelt cover letters. I didn't pretend to be more than I was. I just sent my resume and waited. Days passed. Nothing. More days. Still nothing. And then, one night, while I was folding laundry at 11 p.m. and listening to the sound of the rain against the window, I got the email. We'd like to schedule a short interview. I stared at it for a full minute before it registered. I had to read it twice. Then a third time. A trial position. Remote IT support. 15 hours a week, flexible schedule. Enough to replace the warehouse job. Same pay. Less stress. No steel toe boots. The interview was simple. A video call. They asked about the course, my availability, my willingness to learn. I answered honestly. I didn't oversell anything. I didn't fake confidence. They said they'd be in touch. 2 days later, I got the offer. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I opened the warehouse scheduling app and tapped resign. There was no ceremony. No goodbye shift. No applause or handshake. Just a notification that I was no longer scheduled for any future work. And just like that, a part of my life, this loud, heavy, exhausting part, was over. That night, I came home and didn't make dinner. I didn't study. I didn't scroll. I didn't think about tomorrow. I just turned on the fake fireplace loop on my monitor, turned off the lights, and sat in the silence. No buzz of fluorescent lights. No aching legs. No mental countdown until the next shift. Just stillness. The kind I hadn't felt in almost a year. I climbed into bed and didn't set an alarm. It was the first time in months that sleep didn't feel like a pit stop between shifts. It felt like a return. Like I was finally allowed to rest. I laid there and listened to the rain. Thought about how tired I was, not just tonight, but in general. The kind of tired that builds so slowly, you forget what it feels like to not be tired. And I thought about how close I had come to giving up. Not dramatically, just letting go. Letting life stay this way. But I hadn't. I'd clawed my way out. One step at a time. One quiz at a time. One 15-minute study session at a time. Not because I had a plan. Not because I was brave. But because I had to believe something better was possible, even if it didn't come fast, or loud, or easy. I closed my eyes. And I slept. Not because I was exhausted. But because, for once, there was nothing chasing me. No shift. No deadline. No dread. Just sleep. The next morning, the sun came through the window. I blinked awake slowly, stretched, and realized something strange. I felt rested. I sat up, made coffee, and stared out the window as steam curled into the morning light. Nothing magical had happened. I wasn't rich. I wasn't free. But I had space. I had time. I had the tiniest sliver of peace. And that was enough. So sleep now. If you're tired like I was, if you're stuck in something that feels too big to escape, just know, it doesn't take a leap. It takes a step. One small, slow, quiet step. Maybe it's a decision, a course, a choice to try, even when you're afraid. And maybe, like me, you'll wake up one day and realize you've made it through. And you're finally allowed to rest.